Everybody loves the idea of Northern Michigan. Sparkling lakes, endless trails, and that fresh up north air. But before you pack your bags and head up north, there are some hard truths that you need to know. Life here is amazing, but it's not for everyone. I'm Gino D'Angelo, a Northern Michigan real estate broker, and I help people just like you relocate to Northern Michigan. I've seen firsthand the surprises that people run into when they relocate here. And today, I'm going to give you the unfiltered reality of what it's really like to live in Northern Michigan. Let's start with the obvious one. Winter is no joke. Most people who relocate to Northern Michigan are not used to harsh winters, and that is one of the things that surprises them the most. You need to make sure you are well prepared to survive and actually thrive during the winter. A lot of people ask me, when do you start seeing snow annually in Northern Michigan? And my answer is this. Typically, we start to see snow at the end of October or sometimes even November, but we don't really see the lake effect snow and the snow start to pile up until into the new year. And if surviving winter in Northern Michigan is stressing you out and you want to know exactly what you're getting into, here's the harsh truth about winter. You're going to have to make sure you have an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle. Make sure you have adequate clothing. And for your mental well-being, make sure you have something to do during those winter months. A lot of people in Northern Michigan choose to snowboard or ski, snowshoe, or drive their snowmobiles through the woods. Others just sit inside and read a book by the fire. Both are perfectly fine, but I want to see you thrive in the wintertime in Northern Michigan, not just survive it. I personally think that winter is underrated in Northern Michigan. We go right from the busy summer into the beautiful fall, which kicks off the holiday season in Northern Michigan, where each town turns into a Hallmark movie. And then we go right from the holiday season into my favorite part, which is the snowboard and skiing season. This is when the local ski hills turn into the social hub of Northern Michigan. In the same way you might see all of your friends at the sandbar or on the beach in the summertime, you see all of your friends again on the top of a hill or at the warming hut at either Nubs or Boyne Highlands. Another hard truth about relocating to Northern Michigan is our job market. If you're not coming here with a job, you may have a hard time finding one. Now, there's a good chance you're watching this video because you've been assigned to relocate here, or you've chosen to relocate here to work at one of the great hospitals or one of the great manufacturing factories in Northern Michigan. And if that's the case, you're in luck because most people have a hard time finding a high-paying job in Northern Michigan, which is really unfortunate because it has gotten incredibly expensive to live in Northern Michigan. And one of the biggest problems we have regionally is the cost of houses outpacing the cost of wages in the area. Now, Northern Michigan has definitely benefited from the increase in people working remotely, and it seems like a lot of those people have decided to work remotely in the place they vacation, Northern Michigan. People being able to bring their jobs with them and not having to rely on the local job market has completely changed the landscape of real estate in Northern Michigan. Not only is there a limited job market, but we also have a very seasonal economy. Meaning, if you're coming here to open a business, that is definitely something you need to plan for. Even me, as a real estate agent who has worked here for the last 22 years, I talk to other real estate agents around the country, and they do not have the seasonal swings that we do here in Northern Michigan. Even as a real estate agent, I do about 90% of my business in a few months. Most businesses here have the same dynamic, and that is something you have to get used to planning for. Meaning, if you have a tough summer season, it's very hard to make that up over the winter months. Also, the winter months can be tough if you're someone that's used to year-round action. And if you're somebody that's used to having the conveniences of life just down the road, you may struggle living in Northern Michigan. Now, places like Gaylord, Traverse City, or even Petoskey have a lot of the essentials you need for daily life close to home. But if you're in one of the outlying areas, which a lot of people are, you're going to find yourself driving to almost everything, whether it's the grocery store, taking your kids to school, or even going to the doctor. You're likely going to have a 20 to 30 minute commute no matter where you live in Northern Michigan. And if you factor in the traffic in the summer and the snowy roads in the wintertime, that commute can get even longer. There are a lot of people who live in Northern Michigan that commute from Indian River to Petoskey to work, or places like Sheboygan to Petoskey to work, which makes those early morning trips into these towns even busier. And this is exactly why I make these videos. I want you to be the most educated buyer possible when deciding if you want to relocate to Northern Michigan or not. I've helped hundreds of families relocate to Northern Michigan, but I've also helped some families realize that Northern Michigan isn't for them. My biggest fear is for somebody to move to Northern Michigan and end up hating it, because that is a tough way to live your life. My goal isn't just to help you find a house, it's to make sure that you find the right lifestyle for you. Not only do we have a limited job market and high housing costs, but some of the essentials of life are actually more expensive in Northern Michigan. Things like gas and groceries command a premium to some other metropolitan areas. If you factor in the cost in maintaining your house in the winter or summer months, you might find that living in Northern Michigan is more expensive than you might think. And if you're thinking about relocating to Northern Michigan in your retirement years and being close to healthcare is important to you, be very careful where you pick to live. Now, we have great hospitals in Petoskey and Traverse City, and if being close to quality healthcare is important to you, you're going to love living in both of those areas. Just make sure your commute to those hospitals isn't more than you want to deal with. I constantly get people that call that want to be within 20 minutes of a major hospital, which is possible, but there is a limited amount of houses in that radius. And if you need specialized care, you're going to find yourself traveling hours away to Ann Arbor or Detroit or Grand Rapids to find that care. Something else to consider when you're thinking about relocating to Northern Michigan, specifically if you plan to work remotely here, which, let's face it, a lot of you probably are, is making sure you find a house that has the right infrastructure to allow you to work from home. Now, over the last handful of years, fiber optic internet and cell phone coverage has greatly expanded here in Northern Michigan. However, there are still pockets where cell phone service is a bit spotty and you can't get high-speed internet. So make sure when you call us to start looking at houses, you have us also test Wi-Fi speeds in the area. I would just be careful to assume that every house you're looking at on Zillow has high-speed internet. Speaking of houses, buying a home in Northern Michigan can be a competitive sport. Now, while I truly believe there's a house for every person in every budget in Northern Michigan, some of the most sought-after pockets, like downtown Petoskey, constantly have strong competition. That's why it's important to begin the search early so you can start to understand the market. That way, when you're actually ready to start making offers on homes, you're ready to go. Things like knowing which area you want to live in and what it actually costs to live in that area, mixed with making sure you're pre-approved so you know exactly what you can afford, give you a major leg up in a competitive real estate market. Something that's very interesting about real estate in Northern Michigan is oftentimes there is somebody looking for their primary residence competing with somebody who wants to use that home as a second home or vacation rental. And that definitely creates a little bit of a divide here in Northern Michigan. Hey, if you've made it this far and this type of content seems like your thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I create a new video every week and I would hate for you to miss one. Finally, let's talk about lifestyle, because lifestyle is ultimately what drives most people to Northern Michigan. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not for everyone. That's why I think it's super important for you to just sit down and think about exactly what you want your lifestyle to look like in Northern Michigan. Do you want to have your boat in your backyard on your dock that you can hop on and drive around after work? Do you want to be able to drive 5 minutes away to a ski hill? Or are you hoping to be able to walk downtown to North Perk Coffee and get a cup of coffee in the morning? There are so many different lifestyles here in Northern Michigan, and all of them offer their own advantage or disadvantage. Drop a comment below and let me know what your lifestyle is. And if you're serious about buying a house in Northern Michigan, feel free to reach out to me directly at 231-487-6141. We help hundreds and hundreds of families relocate to Northern Michigan, and I would love to be your real estate agent of choice when you make the move. See you on the next video.